Good evening. And as Father Dave said, my name is Glick, and I'm my second year of seminary at Mundelein Seminary, so I'm pre-theology right now, studying philosophy. So I grew up right down the road in Highland, Indiana. I went to Our Lady of Grace school for kindergarten through 8th grade, raised in a Catholic family. And when I was younger, I never really thought about priesthood too much. I always knew it was an option, being a young Catholic man. But it never really crossed my mind if God could be calling me to priesthood. So when I was younger, I enjoyed a lot of different things, playing sports. I was big into soccer, basketball, and baseball. And then I did a lot of extracurriculars, and that's how I spent my time when I was younger. When I went to high school, I went to a public high school, Highland High School. And this was my first time in public school, and I did notice it was a little bit different from Our Lady of Grace being a Catholic school. And one of the things that happened in high school is that I slowly started to drift away from my faith little by little, as my peers were not very religious, and I started identifying more as being, an athlete and a scholar, taking all these honors and AP classes and things like that. And that's how I spent my high school days. When I was at the time to choose a college, I just pretty much asked myself, well, what are my top skills? And I knew I was good at math and science, and so I said, well, how about try out engineering? Because I think I might be good at that. So I looked at different schools, and I applied to a couple local Midwestern engineering schools, and I picked out Rose-Hulman to go to study mechanical engineering there. So I also decided to join Air Force ROTC to become an Air Force officer after college one day. So I went to Rose-Hulman. I did cross country and track there for a year each, and I was in Air Force ROTC, studying mechanical engineering, and I really enjoyed it. I loved the math and the science classes I was taking. And at this point in life, it was my first time living away from my family. And so going on to college is a big transition. You have to learn time management and responsibility. And so at this point, I continued to kind of take a little step back away from my faith. I was at this big engineering school, a lot of scientific-minded people, and it was difficult for me to get myself to practice my faith in a very intentional way when I was in college. But eventually, even though I was doing all these different things, sports, academics, Air Force ROTC, I was seemingly doing well in what the world had told me I should pursue. But inside, I had a deep feeling that it was not being fulfilled to the complete possibility that I could be fulfilled. And so I started asking myself, well, what has changed in my life? And I started going back to Mass. I started going to a Bible study with some of my peers that invited me to participate in a weekly Bible study. And slowly I started making my way back to practicing my Catholic faith. My senior year of college, I was preparing to graduate and go into the Air Force. And I recently found out that the Air Force had asked me to go to pilot training after I graduated from college. And I excitedly said yes, I'd love to do that. So 1 year out from graduating, this is kind of what I had my eyes on, going to become a pilot in the Air Force after graduating. But that year, I started going to some retreats with the Catholic college students on my campus. And I had an intense encounter with God on those retreats, especially in our time in Eucharistic adoration. And I started realizing that when I was in adoration, when I was in Mass, when I was doing these Bible studies, I had a sense in my heart of fulfillment and of peace that I had never experienced before. And that was what I was really longing for. And so over my senior year of college, I continued to get more and more involved with the university Catholic ministry program, staffing retreats. I began going to daily Mass and to the attended Eucharistic Adoration Chapel that was open 24/7 in my town. And over time, I started to really have a deep desire and longing for my Catholic faith and for God and for Jesus, especially in the Eucharist. And so one day, the university minister, who was a Catholic priest, invited me to come on a discernment retreat for his religious order, the Conventual Franciscans. And so this was towards the end of my senior year of college, as I was about my way out the door of college. But I noticed that these Catholic priests, there were 3 of them that worked at the parish I was at, and they were some of the most joyful, happy people I've ever met. And I wanted to know why, what is it that makes them so happy and fulfilled with their lives? And so I said yes to going on this retreat, not really knowing what I was getting myself into. And on this retreat, the priest that was running it talked about vocational discernment. And this was the first time that I can remember in my adult life someone talking about vocational discernment to me. They were saying, we need to be praying and asking God what is His will for our lives. And previously, I had never really done that when I was looking at what college I should go to. I never prayed and asked God, what is your will for me after high school? And also when I was looking at career paths after college, I just looked at what I thought was going to be an exciting and a fun job to do, being a pilot in the Air Force. But I never asked God, what are you asking me to do with my life? And so I was kind of at a crossroads at this point in my life. I was a couple months from graduating, going into the Air Force, going to pilot training. And on one hand, I had, an option to, pursue things that the world has always told me were good and things that we should pursue. But on the other hand, I saw this life that diocesan and religious priests live that is so happy, so full of joy. And it really started breaking down some false notions about what priesthood was like. I always thought it would be a very boring life, one of not being fulfilled, being lonely, and that's sometimes how it's portrayed. But I had met so many priests at this point in my recent life who were telling me the exact opposite. They were joyful people and loved what they were doing. Certainly there were struggles, but it's from those struggles, is like through Jesus' struggles, that we have the resurrection. And they were so fulfilled with their lives. And so, I continue going on retreats, going to daily mass, going to Eucharistic adoration, and praying, Lord, what is your will for my life? And as many months had passed by, and I started to feel a deeper sense of certainty that I needed to discern this more in seminary. And so one day I got on the phone, called Father David Keim, our Vocation director, and I said, I want to learn more about becoming a seminarian with the Diocese of Gary. I soon after that went on a visit to Mundelein Seminary and met the other seminarians for the Diocese of Gary. And not too long after that, I applied as a seminarian. So that's a little bit of my story. I would just like to highlight a couple of things that I see as kind of themes in my discernment that might also be helpful to you. One of those is frequenting the sacraments of the Eucharist and reconciliation. I think these are very helpful things in our discernment because it helps us to get closer to the life of the Church and also purify our lives. And I encourage you, whenever you're able to, go to Eucharistic adoration and spend some time with our Lord. I would also encourage you to read Scripture, read the Gospels, and get to know about the life of Jesus. Also, if you have the opportunity, talk with your pastor or another priest that you know, and ask them if you can just talk for a little bit to see what God might be calling you to, for a little bit of spiritual direction, to help you in your discernment about what God is calling you to do with your life. Additionally, pray every day. Pray the Rosary, read Scripture, meditate on Scripture. There are many different forms of prayer that we have in the Catholic Church, and I encourage you to find the one that's best suited to your personality and your liking, that you're able to encounter God in that way. And try to make that a habit every day to pray. And finally, if you think that, seminary is possibly an option for you, it's not. Once you step into seminary, you're not immediately becoming a priest. You have many years of formation and more discernment. So don't be scared to go visit a seminary, go on a retreat with our diocese for discerning whether the seminary might be for you. Have a little bit of courage and just know that you have many more years to decide. So don't be afraid to just look into it a little bit more. But talk with Father Dave, and he can tell you about more options as far as how can you learn more about what seminary life is like, how can you learn more about what priest life is like. And two false notions about priesthood that I think were maybe things that held me back from looking into priesthood a little bit more were, one, could I live a life of celibacy that was happy and joyful? Or would I not have the strength to do that? And I think that one thing I found helpful is the little phrase that God will always provide you the grace, the sufficient grace, to do whatever it is He's calling you to do in life. So if God is truly calling you to become a priest, which He may very well be calling any men in this room, He will give you the graces to live out that life. And I think that we have many priests here in this room, and some other priests that maybe you can recall meeting before, who give us a joyful witness, a fulfilled witness of what it is to be a priest of Jesus Christ. So I'd like you this evening and over the next couple of weeks leading into Christmas, continue to pray on these things, and for the young men here, ask God what His will is for you in your life.